Resident Evil 4 never needed a remake. But here we are. As soon as rumblings of this remake hit the rumor mill shortly after RE3 Remake's less than stellar release, myself and a lot of other fans weren't as excited at the prospect of Capcom redoing their already legendary and very playable 2005 classic. Despite the warranted trepidation, RE4R's reveal and subsequent trailers really lit up the internet. A lot of worries I and many other people had seemed to fade away as this very confident game announced itself with its release date front and center before ever showing any trailer, showing off a very faithful yet darker looking version of that classic game running effortlessly and beautifully on Capcom's space-age RE engine. I've been really excited for this game ever since we got those trailers, and I'm so happy to say that after a first playthrough that lasted me 17 hours, and 100 total hours of hardcore, backs against the wall gaming, I can with confidence say that Resident Evil 4 2023 is something truly phenomenal. Thank you, Capcom, for sending me this game in advance and giving me so much time to formulate this review. So without further ado, let us return once again to the world of action survival horror. Resident Evil 4 Remake is a tough game that's mechanics take a lot of getting used to, but once you do, you'll be executing targets stylishly. One of the first things I noticed after playing this game for about 10 minutes was how smooth and tactical Leon felt to control. Leon's animation system is pretty realistic in how he moves, a multi-layered patrolling walk that revs up into a fast sprint, and sudden skittering stops make Leon jerk to a halt. It might sound rigid in my description, but it's very loose, if that makes sense. This looseness creates a fairly uncanny vibe, seeing Leon headshot Ganados, then seamlessly roundhouse kick them into finishing them off with a grounded takedown. Seeing such tactical animation work happen in sequence is incredibly satisfying, and also serves as an amazing visual and gameplay upgrade from how Leon moved and played in RE2 Remake. You really feel like you're playing as this version of Leon who's undergone 6 years of military special forces training. It's super cool to see play out and master. There's so much charming subtlety to Leon's animations that I could talk about all day. If an enemy gets too close, Leon will perch up into a center axis relock aiming style. If Leon makes it through a battle effortlessly, he'll scoff the fight off confidently. If he struggles, you'll see him wringing his muscles out in pain. It's these little touches that connect you to the character better and kind of acts like a rankless ranking screen after each battle. I know something a lot of people were worrying about were Leon's iconic one-liners not making a return due to the game's darker tone, and without spoiling anything, rest assured, Leon's got quips for days. Some really good ones too. A lot of the dialogue in this game is also just from the original game. There are a few moments I know will get memed to death in the best possible ways, so yeah, look forward to that. Leon's combat kit is quite expansive this time around. Along with all the classic RE4 guns you can unlock, you've got a very versatile knife that can slash, poke, and parry, tons of context-sensitive melee attacks, including a flashy suplex, and a few throwable grenade types. 4 Remake feels like Classic 4 on steroids. Movement options are insane compared to the original game. Moving and shooting is the tip of the iceberg, as you'll be vaulting, crouching, stealth killing, parrying into roundhouse, and blasting everything as you protect your president's daughter. Leon's stealth doesn't play a big role in the basic combat formula, but there are a chance few encounters that can be bypassed by staying quiet. I never felt the need to do this, but it's fun how it is an option at your disposal. The crouch button also doubles as a context-sensitive dodge, like from RE3R. It's funny seeing Leon hit a clean backflip in the middle of normal gameplay, or do that very identifiable RE6 hitting the floor dodge under attacks. By the way, every single gun sounds beefy. More than most RE titles, RE4R's guns clearly got special treatment in their design. Looks and sound aren't everything, and thankfully each tool in Leon's arsenal really pack a punch. The starting Silver Ghost, my favorite RE4 pistol, is still a monster by the end game, and equipping it with the laser sight makes it even more pinpoint accurate. That's something a lot of people have wondered about, and I can confirm that some weapons do get laser sights. It's another thing that feels like an offense upgrade as you and Leon become stronger as you progress. One thing that always annoyed me about the original RE4 was how you can very often find yourself having to spend more than one shotgun shell getting a critical hit on a basic villager's head. In RE4R, no matter the power level of a shotgun, for example, it'll always perform consistently. So if you're at close range, your shotgun will be picking apart villagers. Your rifle will always critical headshot basic enemies too. The only thing I don't think is as good as classic RE4 are the reload animations. No longer are you stuck in place while firing, so Capcom made each and every gun reload more realistically rather than stylishly, because you can do this while standing still, in the middle of combat, or while running. Which I think is a little lame, but also a massive nitpick on my part. Farewell, broken butterfly reload animation. I will miss you. The best thing about the guns in RE4 is that all of them are viable in combat. One thing that really held back RE Village's player expression was the very clear emphasis on replacing your guns as you progress through that game. RE4R's guns can all be upgraded to be good as you play, just like the original. I had the biggest smile on my face realizing I was at the end of the game, still using the starting Silver Ghost. In my 100 hours of playing, I tried out basically every firearm, and yeah, they're all good. Leon's knife is also very cool. Taking damage with every use of this blade, Marvin's trusty knife in Leon's more experienced hands is a real tool of destruction. One of the first things I maxed out was this thing's durability. Having access to parries is important, since Leon can parry most things. Ganado melee and ranged attacks are all blockable, if you're fast and brave enough. Larger kill shots like chainsaws, head-eating plaga, and Garador claws are also parryable, but at a big cost. I gotta be honest, it was so incredibly jaw-dropping parrying the chainsaw for myself and hearing the music and the saw's engine stop dead in its tracks to Leon's disbelief. Larger attacks will break your knife, and if this happens, you can repair it at the merchant. You'll also be finding smaller kitchen and boot knives that help you get by. You probably noticed I called this game action survival horror in the intro, and that's because every offensive option you've got is finite. Ammo, heals, and your knife don't last forever. Careful use of each will spell the difference between life and death. And it's this careful balance the game strikes that really makes you feel like you're on the razor's edge in most battles. Everything is a resource this time, so that's why I call this game action survival horror. Leon is a lot more capable in this remake, but so are his adversaries. If you've played the recently released Chainsaw demo, you'll know how aggressive each basic villager can be. Much like RE2R, where in that game, a single zombie could take you out. It's the same thing here. There's nothing funnier than seeing an old granny two-piece Leon before pushing him into Dr. Salvador's chainsaw blade. It's like, damn, okay, that just happened. Again, like RE2R, you can really mangle these possessed fools. One detail that really blew me away was seeing a dismembered villager's gaping wound showing protruding Las Plagas tentacles. This time, Capcom's pushed the parasite to the forefront, in more ways than one. As you might know, Las Plagas only shows up at night, but evidence of their activity is also partially seen in the form of the broken neck Ganado. These half mutations are insanely disturbing. It's an in-between stage where the parasite is puppeting around the shell of the body, with neither party being fully in control. These guys are also really difficult, like basically every other enemy in this game. I guess RE Village really tempered my expectations on enemy difficulty for this title, because I was genuinely surprised at how hard all of the enemies are in this game. You really have to be on your A game or risk just dying outright. I finished this game on easy, normal, and hard, and for the first time since RE7, normal, the standard difficulty as it's called, was my preferred difficulty. Hardcore is really hard, which is great, but it does require very careful planning of things to come. Without going into it, pretty much every enemy from the original game makes their return besides maybe one on the island. The updated castle has some of my favorite fights this time around. The Garador here is legendary. The added stealth mechanic really fleshes out that boss fight in particular. The enemies will also mangle Leon too. I got many a decapitation death scene in my multiple playthroughs that shocked me just like the original game. Shocking decapitations aside, there are some classic enemy death scenes that don't return, and obviously I was disappointed by some of the deaths we actually got in their stead. It's not a game killer by any means, but I can't help but feel this remake has lost a bit of the original game's edge, if you know what I mean. I get that times are different and big companies might want to change things like outfits or how certain subject matter is handled, but gore in a horror game not being completely there is pretty weak in my opinion. Again, not a massive problem that affects the fun of the game, but something that is sorely missed with some of these creatures. I'm gonna put this out there and let you guys know, do not pass up any files as you play. They often go into enemy backstories, and a lot of the time they'll recontextualize the thing you've been fighting for hours, and you might actually feel things for these crazy-ass beasts. It's just really cool how a lot of thought was clearly put into everything in RE4R. Escorting Ashley around can still be stressful, but also entertaining when you figure out how she works. This time, she can't be told to wait in a certain spot. Loose and tight formations are how she follows you around, one being right next to Leon at all times, and the other following farther behind. Switching between these two states is what you'll be doing depending on the situation. It's really awesome facing down a horde and telling Ashley to stay back, clearing out a few guys, and then telling her to move in, getting her away from other enemies on your 6. There will undoubtedly be frustrating moments with this version of Ashley, just like in the original game, but this time she enters a downed state after taking some damage, instead of dying outright. You can still harm her by accident if you're not careful, and enemies no longer go down in a single shot if they're carrying her. It can make for some pretty exciting chases to get her back by your side. Ashley and Leon also talk to each other a lot more during gameplay, so basic actions like her helping you open a door or find a small treasure feel meaningful and fun this time around. It's not just in the beautifully acted and directed cutscenes where these two bond now. Wherever Ash is by your side, you're growing that connection to her, which is exactly what I wanted out of this remake for her specifically. Their chemistry is really good. If you've watched the trailers for this game, you've already seen a few of the bosses. I won't be showing you any of them right now, but needless to say, they're all mostly back. I say mostly because one of them actually got cut. If I'm being honest, it was my least favorite boss from the original, so I wasn't too broken up about it. Every boss has at least one new thing they do, and some of them are entirely redesigned for the better. The ones that stay the same are like the epic version of the fight from 2005. This was kind of a personal problem I had with the game, but I ran into a major issue that might hopefully be resolved with the upcoming Day 1 patch. When I played the game on hardcore difficulty, the Chapter 12 boss was totally broken. This monster wouldn't get stunned hitting its weak point, and it just didn't die by regular means, resulting in me dumping all of my ammo into it to no avail. After dying maybe 13 times in a row, wasting about 40 minutes of my time, I decided to sell everything I had in my inventory and ended up killing the creature with a rocket launcher. I think rockets operate on touch of death logic, so I was able to get past this thing, but it felt horrible, like a bug in the game's code. I really hope this gets resolved, but maybe stick to the normal standard difficulty on your first playthrough if this is still an issue. Other than that, every other boss fight felt like a legendary encounter to overcome. The merchant is back and serves the exact same role as he did in 2005. This very talkative, grumpy old pirate will buy and sell items from you, upgrade your weapons, and now trade you special items like treasure pieces, whole weapons, maps, and a variety of other items that help you on your journey. These special trade items are acquired via Spinel Crystal. Remember those things you were constantly picking up in the original game? Well, now they're retooled as very rare items that drop inconsistently and are awarded through completing new optional side request missions. Since every chapter has you exploring a lot more, Capcom littered the environments with fun optional things to do. Requests like finding and selling a golden chicken egg, hunting a megafish at the lake, and of course, shooting those pesky blue medallions help break up the tension of the constant Ganado battles and keep the game's loop fresh as you progress. I really loved the request system, and I actually completed all of them on my first playthrough. It's something that I didn't expect to enjoy as much as I did, but after doing each of them, it made me feel like this aspect of the remake should have always been in the original game. Exploring the world in front of you is now more rewarding. RE4R's combat takes a lot of getting used to, but once you do master the mechanics, you feel like a smooth operating government agent here to covertly or loudly take down whatever stands in your way to rescue your target. A new breed of action survival horror is here, and I really hope Capcom takes some of the these systems into future games and expands even more on them. And speaking of expansion, when it comes to how Capcom remade each part of RE4, careful consideration in redesigning was clearly taken to make each of these classic environments make way more sense than they did in the original. The village, castle, and island are all still here and come equipped with various changes. So the most important thing I feel for RE4 was its downright amazing pacing. A lot happened in that original game, and it's a miracle how all of it just works from a fun factor perspective. I'm glad to say that the remake's pacing is also amazing. The village plays out nearly identically, with maybe 1 or 2 areas getting completely overhauled, one set piece in particular getting cut entirely, and most importantly, the village doing its job of easing you into the title's gameplay formula with hard enemies, exploration, and amazing boss fights. The castle has the most changes, and while it does play out a bit faster this time, I much preferred its new, very dark design over the bright original. You'll be walking through its beautiful marble hallways and be like, wow, this room looks so amazing now. I can't believe Waterhall's still here. And then open a door expecting to know what's on the other side and be like, oh, where am I? It's really cool for returning fans. I don't want to show you any of the island yet, but I'll say that in 2023, Capcom has taken one of the most complained about sections in this series and made it so much better. This place looks more lab-like, which fits the progression of the narrative better than, suddenly arriving at the original's very 1980s action movie sets. Don't misunderstand. More lab-like does not mean Nest 3 like many a meme would have you believe. The island feels like the original while delivering brand new fun combat and exploration scenarios in redesigned rooms and areas that make more sense. That's the magic pair of words for this review. By the way, things make more sense now in RE4R, can you believe it? The game still has puzzles and none of them are hard, but none of them are as brain dead as RE4 classics. There are tons of surprises that I won't spoil, but just know what makes this game great as a remake is that the biggest and smallest things that happened in OG RE4 are treated with such respect and feel like legitimate moments now. While some set pieces and scenarios from the original were cut, this game doesn't do the RE3R thing of cutting an iconic moment or area and then just moving on from said omission. In RE4R, if something gets cut, it's always replaced with something else, be it a combination of 2 set pieces creating something that feels fresh and familiar, or just a whole new thing altogether. There isn't a single part of this game that doesn't feel like thousands of dollars weren't injected into it to make it more fun. Like, even the shooting gallery is back, and I don't want to show you it because you just won't believe how cool it is. My favorite thing about each part of the game is that all 3 environments have so much exploration now. From new rooms, treasures, enemy encounters, and merchant requests, there's a lot that you can do now that increases that sense of adventure through these haunted locales. The village being the opening hours of the title, railroad you into set pieces and battles that lock you out of previously visited areas, but the castle and island feel much more open. The last 2 levels I just mentioned both have moments where you can backtrack through both of the levels in their entirety, and actually find new events, enemies, and items. It's on a smaller scale by comparison, but like the Dead Space remake, these 2 particular environments just feel more alive, like that game's Ishimura. The original RE4 maybe had one reason to backtrack through the castle, that being to get the broken butterfly. That type of thing is so greatly expanded now and worth doing to upgrade your stuff and find cool customizable treasures. I never thought I'd actually get real folding survival horror level design in RE4, but again, here we are. So I'm not going to go too deep into the story because this game's narrative, I feel, is very important and I want you guys to enjoy it to the fullest. That being said, I think this is probably one of the better written, performed, and cinematically directed Resident Evil games out there. One thing Shinji Mikami, original series director and producer, wanted from this remake was RE4, but with a better story. And that's what you're getting for the most part. If you've been following my coverage on this game, you'll know what I personally wanted was a story about Leon dealing with his trauma of surviving Raccoon City while facing down and overcoming his inner struggle alongside Ashley. Well, without getting into it, I got exactly what I wanted and am extremely happy about it. Ashley and Leon's dynamic goes from an untrusting one to a real team by the end. Ashley's overhaul will have you falling in love with her. She's not an overly confident, angry, cursing female character that we so often get nowadays, as if that's the only way to write a good lady character. She's hella cute, caring, considerate, and has a true bond with Leon and the player this time around. She also helps out way more in the cutscenes and in some gameplay situations, but obviously within her means. I was honestly cheering for her as an original Ashley superfan. The writing staff and cinematics direction did her real justice, as well as her actress. The other character who got the characterization upgrade is Luis. Luis is not only more present in the story, but again, I'm a broken record, everything he does now makes sense. The less said about him, the better, but yeah, him and Leon basically go through a game-long bromance. I did not say gay-long, I said game-long. But speaking of the gays, Krauser and Leon's partnership from the past is explored a bit more through new dialogue, files that you can find, and a quick flashback right at the start that many of you have already seen in the Chainsaw demo. These additions are great, but I would have loved to see at least one more flashback to really fill out their dynamic. With that said, this version of Krauser is more human than the original, and like I mentioned, the added info justifies his role in the story a lot more this time. RE4R also has this really cool graphics option called hair strands, where every character and monster with fur has realistically rendered hair. This option, for some reason, wasn't advertised at all in any trailer, but it really makes the character models look amazing. There are moments where the game just looks like a CGI movie. No joke. I've been playing the game on PS5 and haven't turned this option off once. The game ran perfectly. I highly recommend this option if you can run it. It's a world of difference from the default polygon hair. Sadler and the Los Illuminados are also expanded. This crazy cult leader comes off super religious and more menacing. The culture of the village and castle are more present in the files, and very worth exploring to its fullest. Sadler's stuff is mostly new stuff, so I'll let you experience him and the cult all on your own. Even though pretty much every character and plotline has been improved, there's one that is undeniably worse than the original game, that unfortunately being Ada's role in the story. Her appearances are as limited as her acting and writing capabilities. Her story is basically absent, and it really sucks because like Leon and everyone else are just perfect in this game, and when Ada shares a scene with anyone, it's like she, as a character, is so disconnected from reality. She also sounds really bored. I remember when RE2R came out, some people thought that Ada was a little too mean to Leon in that game. But I always thought that was a weird take, cause her progression in that story is her essentially using Leon in ways that were meaningful to him at that point in his life. So it hits really hard when the betrayal happens. That being said, you still got the feeling she actually cared about him under the surface. Here, I genuinely believe she doesn't care about Leon at all, and it makes her appearances feel unnecessary in a weird way. Like, okay, Ada's here now. Okay, she's gone. Back to business, I guess. I think Capcom will pay this off with Separate Ways DLC, but why does her entire character have to be sacrificed in the main game with such poor everything? The biggest positive is that she isn't really in that much of this story, so she never brings the overall quality of the experience down, unless you're like a die-hard super fan of Ada. It's an unfortunate mark on this mostly perfect game that I hope gets fleshed out way more in Separate Ways DLC. And that's all I'll say about RE4R's story for now. It's a much better take on the events of the Los Illuminados incident in Spain. All of the characters except Ada get such amazing overhauls. I'm not lying to you when I say there were 3 parts of this story that made me tear up, legitimately. That's how good some of the character moments are. I'll be making a larger story spoiler analysis video after launch, where I'll talk about everything that happens on Leon and Ashley's wild escape. So please look forward to that. So yeah, did RE4 need a remake in 2023? No, but I'm glad it got one. I can see myself sinking even more hours into this phenomenal game, with tons of unlockables, replayability, a story that'll tug at your heartstrings, and of course, the free Mercenaries update confirmed just over the horizon. The base game content alone, I feel, is worth it. I mean, I intentionally replayed the game over and over for this review and managed to log 100 hours just unconsciously. I checked my results screen and was like, oh my god, I've been playing this for 100 hours? what? I just had so much fun replaying the story. It makes sense too because that's basically what I did with the original RE4 for like the past 18 years. You're definitely getting your money's worth out of this title if you're someone that loves replaying games over and over again, which I think most Resident Evil fans are like that, so you're in for a treat. With the way the story plays out, I believe we'll get separate ways at some point, and the idea of that is really exciting. Playing as Ada with all of these new mechanics and systems in a game-sized remake of her side of the story will be fun regardless if her acting isn't the best. We've been on a roll for the past few years with RE. To be honest, I hope whatever comes next is something wholly original. As much as I loved these recent remakes, I would be lying if I said I didn't feel the fatigue setting in. So I hope Capcom gives it a few more years before they decide to remake anything else. That goes for other IPs too. That being said, I'm really happy with this game, and the dev team's passion is just clearly on display in every facet of what's present here. RE4R is a masterfully created game using years of built-up knowledge and game design philosophy from a variety of developers. It genuinely had me smiling like an idiot fangirl as the credits rolled. So the ultimate question I have for you is, do you have the heart, guts, soul, and parasites within you to return to the haunted Spanish countryside and save Ashley once again? Face your fears and overcome in the heart-racing dark world of RE4 Remake. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. RE4R is great, what a surprise. I just want to say again that I've got another RE4R video coming down the pipeline once the game actually releases. Look forward to that, as we'll be discussing a lot of the story and character motivations that I think are genuinely great. If you liked this particular video, please consider subscribing and checking out my Patreon in the description. I've got one hell of a video schedule this year. We'll be branching out a bit with some different genre titles that I am so excited to talk about. But yeah, I hope you guys have fun with RE4R, and I'll catch y'all very soon in the next video. Later.